rust, bad support, and that interesting bolt right there. So this right here, let's see the problem. So is the reason why we're going to be grinding this, and so is the reason this is the life of a Audi home mechanics, so to speak. I'm sure the shop has a fancy tool for this, but we're gonna have to grind this down to where we can place it at least, and then in small rotations let it loose. And I'm hoping it's not super tight to where I'm gonna have to lock this in. We'll see. And then I realized Audi never deals with even numbers. So that is not an 18 mil, that's a 17 mil. Somehow on the forum the conversation got into the whole 18 millimeter wrench. That's quite loose right there. Now that's tight. So Audi never deals with even number. Yes, as you can see, somebody who's naive or too professional is gonna say this looks scary, but if you're careful, and which I made sure that it's comfortably here, this is steel, so my hand damage ain't gonna do much, but the vise can do damage. Like for example, clamping the thing, you don't want to do that. Weak metal here, if you try to clamp it in, not a good idea, because obviously you could damage something like here, or just take off the primer. You don't want to do that. So I use this Harbor Freight again, and so this is counterclockwise, not clockwise. And once you break it loose, so I was eager to grind it, but then I thought, why can't I just break it loose with this? So check this out. Nice, huh? But what's the problem with this, right? If that bolt comes out further enough, guess what? I'm screwed. So I'm gonna have to loosen it, right? Press it out or tap it out with a rubber mallet, like the guys at the Facebook group mentioned. I can't remember their names, forgot, dang it. But anyways, a couple of mechanics, good guys, recommended you just you use a rubber mallet to kind of tap them out, which I'll do that later, probably somewhere here. Since this is damaged, I'm gonna kind of do something creative, probably do it like this and then hit it from the side of the wrench, something. But nonetheless, so far I'm finding no reason to grind my 17 mil to stick it in. So far I can work with this like that. So far I got what, 1/8 of an inch out. I'm gonna do as much as I can, and anyways, I hate videotaping ratchet. Okay, you see, when you go like this you get more room, when you go like this it closes in. So decided, because this right here is back, just visualize this back in the thread. So I used the bolt as my, well, great. Basically I used the bolt as my force to press it out, and I lifted this up and stuck this into there, and it gave me enough clearance. And as I lowered my whole shaft, and I used the leverage of the length to press it, and the bolt pressed it outward. So this is what you're looking at. Basically, you see, you got the idea, right? It separates this clamp, and then here you've got that. You basically use like this. Really, there's nothing clipping it, it's just a bent. The whole securement is very light. See, it moves. This whole thing will slide out. Whether to mark it or not, I don't think this area needs marking because it doesn't define physics. It's secured to a fixed position. It's that needs to be marked. So I'm replacing this because I just don't like the fact that this is bent. Most likely it was bent because it was squeezed from the bottom. See? One little thing though, when you're taking it off, just be careful. Don't have this thing to fly off, shoot off on you, because it will slip off the tool. And there it is. It's about to come off. This is about, in fact, let's do this. Only two hands. Off right here. I mean, if you got this loose, you don't have any resistance really. Just clean it up. Do some inspecting. Don't lose the clamp. And then when you put it back in, lubricate it, put some grease on it, pack this up back in and put the clamp back in, and you're golden. And that's what I intend to do. Pretty much right there, what you're looking at is a better one, nicer one, a cleaner one. I will be putting in this. Really nothing too complex about it. Just have extra rags. Just have extra rags because it's going to be messy. And really basic, to be honest with you. Slide it back in, secure the rubber boot, lock it in with the pin, finish it off with some additional grease. Put some grease on that and really clean it up. Prepare the bolts for the connecting bolts, and you're good. So a couple of struggles. Number one, putting this back on, it has to go over a step, right? Because when you have a step, you prevent from slipping, having the boot to slip off. That step, it's quite a struggle to have this over. So what I did was I ran a screwdriver and settled this first, because this moves. This moves, and I was able to guide the screw flathead kind of easily without damaging, scoffing, whatever, and slide it in with plenty of grease. Once I slid that in, I used the hammer to evenly tap it in, and then you're going to have to use something like this. This is like a 1-inch, and even that one is a bit smaller. I'm going to say like a 24 mil, 25 mil will give you the room to tap that in with the hammer. And what I have left to do is put the clamp back in there, tighten that up. It doesn't have to be real tight, but just tight enough. And use a pin of some sort to rotate this to make sure that it's seated properly, and you could see the groove that you can tell that it sits okay. See, tighten that back in. Really, this area, not much importance. I mean, it is important, but most of the preventative and most of the sealing is done by the step that the boot goes over. I'm gonna finish it off with some packing it up with grease. And I suppose there's 1,000 ways to skin a cat, right? This is just one of them. With the bolt halfway loosened, it's probably a good time to talk about marking the shaft. Why am I laughing? Is because I didn't mark the shaft on my first one. Yeah, because my brain was somewhere else, and that was the result. So I end up paying extra 30 some bucks to the junkyard, pulling me another one, and it doesn't look as pretty as my original one, but like all this is rusty. Nonetheless, yeah, my mistake is for you to avoid that mistake. So got this to mark it up. I'm gonna use a 3-point marking, you know, because 3 of them is easier to, much accurate to line up. And I'll be using this. The thickness of this, see, will allow me to get it in there, and I will use the angle to tuck it in, and then I will use that angle to press it out. You will understand what I'm talking about when you will have it out, because right here I can stick it in and turn it around and just lean on the shaft, and it'll press that bolt that way, thus give me more room to unscrew this, right? Also good to take a look is, see the round edge on the washer? That is a washer, by the way. See? To me, that's way sharp over here. Here, it's more rounded. So something else to consider. Put it in like this. Barely. First of all, I barely used PP Blast on this shaft. Second of all, I just put it in and just lightly leaned on it, and it popped out. See? In fact, look at that. It's pretty impressive. Mine was stuck on pretty good. The original one. This one is quite impressive. This is an example of one tooth off. So let's say you wonder, what if I screw up, right? Well, here it is. Here's an example of a screw up. That's one tooth off. Unless your eyeballs are crisscrossed like a yin-yang, then this will be lined up for you. But in reality, this is one tooth off. Counterclockwise, it seems. Yep, counterclockwise, one tooth off. I think for that reason, exactly for that reason, why I made 3 marks, because it's the same concept used as, you know, for the timing belts. 3-point reference, XYZ, etc., etc., etc. It's a general concept, but it helps to keep things accurate. And considering this has been being used already, being accurate could help along the way. So I only used maybe about I don't know, 10 pounds of force, really maybe 15 tops pounds of force, and it just popped right in. Of course I put grease on it, but I did it like this, and then I did it like this, and like tapped it. I mean I wasn't even trying. Oh, crikey. I wasn't even trying. So I'm planning to close her up with the blue thread lock. It's just precautionary, medium strength. I will be using some of this self-priming salt and rust resistant paint just to kind of touch up areas where there's showing of rust. The yoke, or the U-joint, whatever you want to call it, slid on quite easily, and notches are lined up, and this bolt is about to go in with the sharp edge towards the pressure area. With that much room, I was able to hand tight with fingers, like I stuck my fingers in there, so it's plenty of space to get the job done. You just don't rush. I keep saying this all the time because I rushed once, didn't keep my head on, and I forgot to mark it, so still kind of mad at myself, but oh well. Nonetheless, the bolt is tight enough to where I can lift it up and use the 17 mil and complete the tension. As far as torque goes, it's quite frankly, I want to say approximately 30-40 pounds. Really, I did not fight to unscrew that bolt. By the way, counterclockwise. That bolt, to unscrew it, you have to go counterclockwise, and I did not use a lot of strength. I want to say 40 pounds, whatnot, and so you're just gonna have to use experience and common sense to get this bolt tight and move on. Once it all dries up, it's good to go in. I'm gonna clean up the bolts that go in there, you know, your fastening bolts, and I wanted to put this epoxy paint on simply because I just don't want to see rust. And now it's it looks pretty good. It looks really good. Actually, I'm quite pleased, and I'm going to put it back in. I'm not sure if it's going to be today, but definitely tomorrow. That's going to be tricky. Two hands underneath the car with the camera. Okay. Drive shaft is in. Right there. Right there. Kind of look at that fat bushing right there, the spacer. Also consider this, the distance between both of these, you know. So let's talk about this. What have I done? First of all, since it's on jacks, all four wheels are spinning. Definitely place this in you being parallel to the car. I had to use my hands and my leg to make sure both sides are carefully in place without tossing grease everywhere and putting a load on my 034 urethane center mount. Anyways, I just didn't want to ruin that, and for that reason I got myself comfortable with the shaft and placed it. I did this first, the front first. I also tacked on this bolt first, so it's in place. The exhaust pipe helped me to keep things in place. I had one of them put in, two of them put in actually, to make sure I place it, you know, and I start doing hand tightening it, you know. Don't want to be tightening it with one bolt. This particular design, if you tighten one bolt, you'll do two things. You'll ruin the thing it's going into, and there's quite a good possibility you will skew the CV boot gasket, the one I never talked about. And you got to be careful with that. For that reason, you can't really, you have to hand tighten first. And then you go into your car and you pop it in first gear, pull the e-brake, and finalize everything to torque spec. So get a closer look at this. You see this right here, this line? Okay, there's about a 1/4 inch of meat of this going into here. If you're tightening it one bolt, you will put an angle on it and you end up doing other dumb things, so don't do it. So this is what it looks like. This is already tight. Another tip, see how clean these are? I took some Q-tips and I cleaned it up. It really helps to always, you know, every time I pop my Allen in there, it helped me to keep it, you know, plumb and whatever you call it, all the way in, and it just helps without, you know, damaging the bolt. What else? So kind of give you an idea what I'm dealing with, right? The whole purpose of this video, obviously I went into serious depth of showing you guys what it takes. So now you're looking at the back end. Damn, I'm bending my arms here for you guys, damn it. Ow. Scheiße. Okay. Wait. So this is the back end, this is the diff end. Again, because I didn't mention much about the gasket, you want to be really careful about that gasket. When I placed this one in, and I was placing the bolts in, one of the bolts pushed the gasket out. So just be careful when you're going in there. Preferably if you have a buddy. See, I'm doing this all by myself. Keep that in mind. Preferably you have plenty of lighting, so that you can see that you didn't mess it up. Okay. One of the things I discovered, apparently when I pop it into e-brake, only one wheel locks up. That wheel doesn't lock up. It still spins. And I looked at the brake pads on this, almost worn out. Brake pads on that, 75%. So I got another problem on the horizon. Anyways, moving on. I don't know, this video is becoming long, so I'll wrap it up. The remaining is the heat shield, and that's it, really. Honestly, I just trying to think if I forgot anything. I hope I didn't forget anything. Everything's in place. These are tight with a 13 mil. If I did, damn it, did I do my video upright? Yeah, shit. Well, your video might be upside down. Video upside down, I don't care. Well, you guys at least have the image, and I see, and at least you guys get to see what's in here, right? So this is Quattro, obviously, and that's it, guys. I just one shot of lightning here for you, and that way you can see from the strange angles of how it looks. And that's it, really.